Imagine a man so powerful with words that he changed the English language forever. A man whose stories of love, betrayal, and ambition still captivate the world 400 years after his death. A man who invented over 1,700 words, influenced kings and queens, and wrote plays that shaped history. But what if I told you that this legendary writer's life is full of secrets? That his past hides mysteries no one can explain? That he may have never written a single word himself? This is the story of William Shakespeare. Did you know Shakespeare's birth date is a mystery? Historians believe he was born on April 23, 1564, but there's no official birth record. The only thing we know for sure? Just 3 days later, he was baptized in a small church in Stratford-upon-Avon. Did you know Shakespeare married a woman 8 years older than him? At just 18 years old, he married Anne Hathaway, a woman of 26 who was already pregnant with his child. Their love story was far from perfect, but it led to a family, drama, and secrets we still wonder about today. And then, he disappeared. For 7 years, from 1585 to 1592, there is no record of Shakespeare anywhere. Historians call this the lost years. Where did he go? Some say he was a schoolteacher, others believe he was a traveling actor, or even a fugitive escaping the law. Whatever the truth is, it remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. But here's where things get even stranger. Shakespeare never published his own plays. Everything we know today exists only because his friends decided to collect his works after his death. If they hadn't, we might never have known his name. He spelled his name in many different ways. In fact, in 6 surviving signatures, he never once wrote William Shakespeare the way we spell it today. Some believe this is proof that he wasn't the true author of his plays. Could someone else have written them? Even Queen Elizabeth I admired his work. Shakespeare's talent earned him royal support, and later, King James I made his acting company the official King's Men of England. But success didn't come without enemies. A rival playwright once called him an upstart crow, mocking him for trying to compete with London's elite writers. But his words were unstoppable. He filled his plays with deep human emotions: love, power, ambition, betrayal, and fate. Things we still relate to today. Even in death, he had one last message. His tombstone carries a curse warning anyone who dares to move his bones. So why does Shakespeare still matter today? Because his words shaped how we speak. His stories still move us. And his life, full of mystery, struggle, and triumph, proves that even an ordinary boy from a small town can change the world forever. So, my friends, are you ready to uncover the real William Shakespeare? Stay with me, because this story is about to change the way you see English forever. And don't forget, at the end of the video, we'll go over important vocabulary and key grammar points from the story. This will help you understand English better and use it more naturally. So, keep watching and let's begin. Shakespeare's early life. In Stratford-upon-Avon. It was a cold April day in the year 1564 in a small English town called Stratford-upon-Avon. A baby boy was born. His parents, John and Mary Shakespeare, held him close, never knowing that their son would one day change the world. His name was William Shakespeare. Stratford-upon-Avon wasn't a big city. It was a quiet town with narrow streets, wooden houses, and a river flowing gently through it. People lived simple lives, working as farmers, traders, and craftsmen. William's father, John Shakespeare, was a glove maker. He made fine leather gloves and sold them in the town market. He was a hard-working man, respected in the community. His mother, Mary Shakespeare, came from a wealthy farming family. She was kind, strong, and full of love for her children. William was the third of 8 children. A curious mind and a love for stories. children, the house was always a whirlwind of laughter, chatter, and the sounds of everyday life. But William was different. He was curious, an observer of everything around him. He listened to how people spoke, laughed, and cried. Little did he know that this curiosity would one day make him the greatest playwright of all time. Back then, there were no TVs, phones, or the internet. People entertained themselves with stories. Traveling actors would perform plays in the streets. Young William would watch in awe, his eyes wide with excitement. He loved listening to old legends, folk tales, and heroic stories from history. Each story strengthened his imagination. At the age of 7, William started school. It was a small, simple building with wooden benches and a strict teacher. But what he learned there would shape his destiny. He studied Latin, history, poetry, and literature. Latin was the language of scholars, and young William became quite good at it. He read the great stories of ancient Rome and Greece, discovering writers like Plutarch and Virgil. Their words stayed with him, inspiring his future plays. But William wasn't just a bookworm. He loved nature. He'd walk through the green fields, watch the river, and listen to the birds. He'd play with his friends, run through the streets, and enjoy life like any other boy. Challenges and the mysterious lost years. Yet, there was something inside him, a deep hunger for words, stories, and meaning. Just when life seemed normal, trouble struck. William's father, a respected businessman, started facing financial problems. He had borrowed money for his business, but things weren't going well. The family had less money, and there were even days when they struggled to buy food. William saw the stress in his father's eyes and the worry in his mother's voice. He knew that life was uncertain, but instead of feeling hopeless, he observed everything, felt every emotion deeply, and learned that life is full of surprises and challenges. William Shakespeare was a true Renaissance man, full of ups and downs, but he had a special way with words. As a child, he'd create little poems and rhymes, and he loved acting out roles to entertain his friends. But no one in Stratford-upon-Avon knew that this young boy would one day write the most famous plays in the world. For now, he was just William, dreaming big. But those dreams were about to take him far, far away. William Shakespeare was growing up fast. By the time he turned 14, he'd read countless books, listened to hundreds of stories, and watched traveling actors perform in his small town. But life wasn't always easy. His father's financial troubles were getting worse, and the once respected businessman was struggling to pay off debts. The family, which had lived in comfort, was now facing tough times. Young William saw it all, and he understood that nothing in life was permanent. Not money, not status, not even happiness. Instead of feeling hopeless, he became more observant, thoughtful, and creative. Then, something extraordinary happened. By the time William turned 18, he was no longer a boy. He was a young man, and like many young men, he fell in love. Her name was Anne Hathaway, and she was a beautiful, intelligent, and independent woman. But there was something unusual about their love story. Anne was 26 years old, 8 years older than William. In those times, it was uncommon for a younger man to marry an older woman. But love doesn't follow rules, and William was deeply in love with Anne. However, something unexpected happened. Anne became pregnant before they were married. This was a big deal in those days. Society was very strict about such matters, and a child born outside of marriage would bring shame to both families. So, William and had to get married quickly. In November 1582, at just 18 years old, William Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway. He was still a young man, trying to find his way in the world, in life, and now he was about to become a father 6 months after the wedding, and gave birth to their another child, a baby girl named Susanna, 2 years later in 1585. Then, in 1587, at just 21 years old, William Shakespeare became a husband and a father of 3 children. Life was moving fast, but there was one problem. How would he support his family? His father's business was still struggling, and William had no stable job. He knew he had to find a way to make money, but what could he do? He had no interest in working as a glove maker like his father. He had no land, no title, no fortune, but he had words, stories, and a burning desire to create the mysterious and lost years of his life. Shakespeare's rise. In London's theatre scene. From 1585 to 1592, this was the period of Shakespeare's life that historians call the lost years because no one knows exactly what he did during these 7 years. There are no records of him working in Stratford, and no one knows for sure how he survived. But there are some theories. Some say he became a schoolteacher because he was well educated. He might have worked as a private tutor for a rich family. Others believe he worked as an actor. He might have joined a traveling theater company and learned the art of performance. 3 others say he got into legal trouble and had to leave Stratford. One story suggests that he was caught hunting illegally on a rich man's land and had to run away. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. By the time Shakespeare reappeared in history in 1592, he was no longer just a small-town boy. He was in London, ready to take on the world. London in the late 1500s was a city full of energy, ambition, and opportunity. It was the heart of England's theatre scene, filled with actors, writers, and poets all competing to make a name for themselves. Shakespeare arrived in London with no money, no connections, and no experience, but he had something more powerful: talent, determination, and an unstoppable passion for storytelling. He began working as an actor, and soon, he became one of the greatest writers of all time. Shakespeare was an actor in small theater groups before he became a playwright. He studied how people spoke, moved, and expressed emotions, and soon he started writing his own plays. At first, he wrote simple, entertaining plays to make people laugh, but as time went on, he realized he could do more. He could write plays that made people think, feel, and question life itself. By 1592, Shakespeare was becoming well known in London's theatre world, but not everyone liked him. A famous playwright named Robert Greene insulted him in a letter, calling him an upstart crow. But Shakespeare didn't let that stop him. He worked harder and wrote more plays, performing them in more theaters and gaining the respect of actors and audiences. In 1593, a terrible disease called the plague spread across London. Theaters were forced to close, and Shakespeare suddenly found himself without work. But he didn't give up. Instead of writing plays, he started writing poems. He wrote 2 famous long poems, one called Venus and Adonis and the other called The Rape of Lucre. These poems made him rich and famous. Even the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth I, was impressed by his work. Success, the Globe Theatre, and royal recognition. By 1594, theaters reopened, and Shakespeare returned to doing what he loved most: writing and performing plays. From 1594 onwards, Shakespeare became part of a famous acting company called the Lord Chamberlain's Men. He wasn't just writing plays. he was performing in them. His plays were full of love, heartbreak, power, ambition, betrayal, revenge, jealousy, and madness. Othello was one of his most famous plays. By the late 1590s, Shakespeare was one of the most famous playwrights in England, but he didn't stop. He wanted more success, more influence, and more masterpieces that would stand the test of time. And that's exactly what he achieved. The Globe Theatre was his dream come true. Lord Chamberlain's men decided to build their own theatre, which they named the Globe Theatre. Imagine the scene. A massive circular theater with an open roof. Thousands of excited people rushed to get a seat. The stage was set for some of the greatest plays ever written. This was Shakespeare's home, his dream, and his kingdom at the Globe. He performed his greatest works there, like Hamlet, a story about revenge, madness, and fate. Macbeth, a tale of power, ambition, and guilt. Othello, a tragic story of love and jealousy. And Julius Caesar, a political drama full of betrayal. These plays weren't just entertainment. They were powerful stories that made people think, feel, and question life itself. By the early 1600s, Shakespeare's success brought him wealth beyond imagination. He wasn't just a famous writer. He was one of the richest playwrights in England. He owned shares in the Globe Theatre, which brought him a huge income. Every time a play was performed, he earned money from published plays and poems that were sold all over England. He received royal support, which meant the king and queen admired his work. He bought multiple properties, including a grand house in Stratford called New Place. At a time when most playwrights struggled to survive, Shakespeare was living a comfortable, wealthy life. But fame and fortune weren't enough for him. He wanted something bigger. In 1603, a historic event changed everything. Queen Elizabeth I, who had supported Shakespeare, died. Her successor was King James I. At first, no one knew if the new king would appreciate theater or if he would close the theaters forever. But Shakespeare didn't have to worry. King James loved his work. In fact, he loved Shakespeare's play so much that he personally invited Shakespeare's acting company to perform for him. Then, something incredible happened. King James gave Shakespeare's company a royal title. They were now called the King's Men. This was the highest honor a playwright could receive. It meant they were official. The actors of the royal court were protected and supported by the king himself. They would perform in front of the most powerful people in England. Shakespeare had gone from being a glovemaker's son to the most celebrated playwright in England's history between 1600 and 1611. During this time, he wrote some of his most famous and deepest plays, which weren't just stories but reflections of life, power, love, and loss. King Lear, for example, is a heartbreaking story of a father's betrayal. Macbeth is a dark tale of ambition and destruction, and The Tempest is a magical story of forgiveness and new beginnings. As Shakespeare grew older, his writing became darker, more emotional, and deeply philosophical. He had experienced fame, fortune, betrayal, and loss, and his plays became more personal and his characters felt more real than ever before. Shakespeare's later years and retirement. By 1611, Shakespeare had achieved everything he had ever dreamed of. He was famous, rich, and respected by kings and queens. In 1613, he made a surprising decision that surprised everyone. He retired for years. He had lived in London, writing, acting, and directing plays, but deep inside, he missed home. He missed the quiet streets of Stratford, the green fields, the rivers, and most of all, he missed his family. So, he packed his things and returned to his grand house in Stratford. There, he planned to spend the rest of his life in peace. He would wake up early in the morning and walk around his beautiful gardens, enjoying the beauty of nature. He would sit by the fireplace, reading books and thinking about the life he had lived. He would spend time with his daughters, Susanna and Judith. Legacy and inspiration for future generations. Have you ever heard of William Shakespeare? He was a famous English playwright and poet who lived a long time ago, in the 1600s. People from London would often visit him, seeking his advice on plays and poetry. Even though he had retired, his mind was still full of stories. Some say that even in his final years, he would spend hours lost in thought, whispering words of poetry to himself. One day, something unexpected happened. Shakespeare attended a dinner party with his friends. It was a fun evening filled with laughter, wine, and conversation. But soon after, he fell ill. Some say it was a fever, while others believe it was a disease caught from the cold weather. No one knows for sure, but his health quickly declined. Shakespeare's family and friends gathered around him, knowing that the greatest writer in history was leaving this world. On April 23, 1616, at the age of 52, William Shakespeare breathed his last. The world had lost a genius, but his words would never die. Shakespeare knew that after his death, people might move his body from his grave. So, he wrote an epitaph, a short poem warning anyone who tried to disturb his rest. He asked them to be good friends for Jesus' sake and not dig up his bones. He also blessed the man who bears these stones and cursed anyone who moves his bones even in death. When Shakespeare died, Stratford fell silent. People gathered at Holy Trinity Church, the place where he was baptized as a baby, to say their final goodbyes. The church was filled with people, including actors, writers, his family, friends, and even simple townsfolk who had known him since childhood. Tears were shed, prayers were whispered, and his body was laid to rest in the very town where he was born. No grand monuments or golden tombs were built for him. Instead, there was just a simple grave marked with his own words. But little did the world know that this was just the beginning of his legacy. Shakespeare's body may have been buried, but his words refused to die. His plays continue to be performed and studied around the world, and his influence can be seen in many aspects of modern culture. Shakespeare's books kept being read, his name kept being spoken, and his stories kept being told for years, then decades, and then centuries. And yet, he remained alive in the hearts of people all over the world. His works were translated into every language on earth, and his stories inspired millions of writers, filmmakers, and poets. His words became part of everyday speech, with phrases like, "to be or not to be," and "all the world's a stage." Even today, over 400 years later, Shakespeare is still everywhere. His plays are performed in theaters all over the world. His books are studied in schools and universities, and his words appear in movies, songs, and speeches. Because Shakespeare understood human nature better than anyone else, he wrote about love, betrayal, ambition, jealousy, fate, and dreams. Things that every human being can relate to. He showed us that love can be beautiful but also tragic, and that power can corrupt even the strongest hearts. In Macbeth, betrayal can come from those closest to us, and in Julius Caesar, life is full of uncertainty and mystery. In Hamlet, his stories remind us who we are and who we can become if Shakespeare were alive today. He would have one message for you: dream big, tell your story, and never stop believing in yourself. Because he was just a small-town boy from Stratford who dared to dream beyond the ordinary, and today his name is written in history forever. William Shakespeare's life may have ended, but his story will never end, and now it's in your hands. His words are yours to read, learn, and share with the world. My amazing friends, you have a dream, right? Maybe you want to be a writer, an actor, a speaker, a leader, or a creator. Someone who leaves a mark on this world. But sometimes fear stops you. People doubt you. You feel like giving up. Let me tell you something powerful. William Shakespeare was just like you. In a small town, there was a young man with no wealthy family or connections. Despite everyone doubting his chances of fame, he had a dream that would change the world. Now it's your turn. You have a fire burning inside you, a story to tell, and a voice that matters. Don't let fear hold you back or let others tell you you can't do it. The truth is, you can. You're stronger than you think, greater than you believe, and just one step away from transforming your life forever. So, my friends, never stop chasing your dreams. Start today, work hard, and never give up. One day, like Shakespeare, your name will be remembered. If this story inspired you even a little bit, please comment below and share your dream with us. Let's inspire each other and subscribe to this channel to learn, grow, and become unstoppable together. Your future is waiting for you, and it's time to make history. Remember, it's not in the stars to hold our destiny. It's in ourselves. William Shakespeare, and maybe, just maybe, you're the next great storyteller the world is waiting to hear. Key vocabulary. Now, let's learn some important words and phrases from today's story about William Shakespeare. Understanding these words will help you improve your English and make it easier to follow the story. Let's begin. 1. Playwright. Noun. A playwright is a person who writes plays for the theater. Example: William Shakespeare is the most famous playwright in history. 2. Inspiration. Noun. Inspiration is a feeling of being motivated to do something great. Example: Shakespeare found inspiration in history, legends, and human emotions. 3. Ambition. Noun. Ambition is a strong desire to achieve something great. Example: Shakespeare's ambition helped him become the most famous writer in the world. 4. Betrayal. Noun. Betrayal means breaking someone's trust. Example: Shakespeare wrote about love, power, and betrayal in many of his plays. 5. Tragedy. Noun. A tragedy is a sad story where bad things happen to the main character. Example: Romeo and Juliet is a famous tragedy written by Shakespeare. 6. Perform. Verb. To perform means to act, sing, or do something in front of an audience. Example: Shakespeare's plays were performed in the famous Globe Theatre. 7. Influence. Noun. Influence is the power to change or affect something. Example: Shakespeare had a huge influence on the English language. 8. Fame. Noun. Fame means being known by many people. Example: Shakespeare's fame spread across England and beyond. 9. Legacy. Noun. Legacy is what a person leaves behind after they are gone. Example: Shakespeare's legacy continues to inspire writers today. 10. Quote. Noun/verb. A quote is the exact words someone said or wrote. Example: One of Shakespeare's most famous quotes is "to be or not to be." Great job, my friends. Now, try using these words in your own sentences. Which word was new for you? Comment below and share your favorite Shakespeare quote if you know one. Key grammar points. Now, let's take a look at an important grammar point from today's story. Learning grammar through real stories will help you understand English better and use it more naturally. So, let's get started. Today's grammar focus: the past simple versus the past continuous. In Shakespeare's story, we saw many sentences in the past tense. But did you notice? Some sentences use the past simple, while others use the past continuous. Let's learn the difference. 1. Past simple. Actions that happened in the past. We use the past simple for completed actions that happened at a specific time in the past. Structure. Subject plus past verb plus time reference. Examples from the story. William Shakespeare was born in 1564. He married Anne Hathaway when he was 18. Shakespeare wrote many famous plays. 2. Past continuous. Actions in progress in the past. We use the past continuous to talk about actions that were happening at a specific moment in the past. Structure. Subject plus was slash were plus verbine. Examples from the story. People were watching Shakespeare's plays in the Globe Theatre. When Shakespeare was a boy, he was listening to old legends. While the actors were performing, the audience cheered. Past simple versus past continuous. How do we choose? Use the past simple for actions that are finished. Shakespeare became famous. Use the past continuous for actions in progress. People were reading his plays even after he died. 3. A common grammar mistake. Shakespeare wrote many plays. Wrong. Shakespeare wrote many plays. Correct. Remember, we don't use was or were with the past simple form of other verbs. Practice time. Now, let's practice. Fill in the blanks with the correct form. 1. 2. 3. Write your answers in the comments. I'll check them for you. My amazing friends, you did it. You just learned about the incredible life of William Shakespeare, a man who started with nothing but a dream and changed the world with his words. And guess what? You are on your own journey too. Every time you listen to a story in English, you are taking one step closer to fluency. Every new word you learn, every sentence you understand, brings you closer to your goal. Learning a language is not easy, but you are doing it. And I am so proud of you. But don't stop here. Keep learning, keep practicing, and keep believing in yourself. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to this channel so you never miss a new video. Join our Facebook group, Learn English with Stories 365, where you can practice, ask questions, and connect with other learners just like you. Now, tell me in the comments, what was your favorite part of Shakespeare's story? Which new words did you learn today? Let's keep learning together. And always remember, every great writer, every great speaker, and every fluent English learner started just like you, with a dream, a passion, and the courage to keep going. So, my friends, never stop learning, never stop believing in yourself, and I'll see you in the next story.